Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I was asked the other day on LinkedIn, a lady based in, I don't know where in the US, she said, you know, when you put this on, it's 4 a.m. in the morning. I said, no worry, you can watch this back. So welcome everybody, especially to our panelists. Today's session is all around cyber awareness and cyber awareness training. And we've got a lot of people on the panel today. And we normally do an hour, but the hour goes by so quickly. So if you have any questions, please post them in the comments, and then we'll certainly answer them. If we can't answer them, we always go back after the event and go through all the comments and then answer them then. And also, please remember that you can watch these back. Not only today's one, but we've done, I think this is our 12th one now, Ben, that we've done together, and there's such a lot of good information that people can listen back to, which should be part of your cyber awareness training. So I'm going to start with our cyber awareness training partner, Karen, and also her partner, William. But Karen, I mean, I know this is a loaded question, but would you mind expanding on all the different methods that companies or even individuals can use when it comes to cyber awareness training?
Absolutely. Thank you, Francis, so much for inviting us today, and welcome everybody.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, I think there are multi-layers to cybersecurity awareness training, and I think it should start with the board, if I'm honest, to set board training for boards to truly understand what cyber risk is, in order to make the right cyber decisions and the right investment decisions of where they focus their efforts, where they prioritize, to understand how much cyber risk they're actually holding and where it's being held. Cyber is around holistic cybersecurity. It's around people, process, technology, intelligence, not just technology. And often there's someone missing at the board table that has that expertise, either from a CISO or an information security officer. And so using board training is a great way to get boards up to speed with what cyber risk is. They then set the right tones and behaviours for the rest of the organisation to follow and build a great culture. In addition to board training, having regular updates on threat landscapes for boards and what the threat landscapes look like, and because they move at such fast pace, is really, really important. This is not a static topic. A threat can change at any point in time. So doing training once is not enough. It needs to be kept regular and up to date. So boards really can make, got the fingers on the pulse. And then we have online training. And there's various different platforms. We at Lockdown Cybersecurity work with 4 of them. They're mainly Gartner projects, Gartner Magic Quadrant type solutions, online monthly, online trainings that are done short, sharp bursts, continuous during the year. I would advocate that more so than training once a year. Because of the attacks landscape and how it works, training videos are often created to address a training requirement that's needed, and having those during the year is really important. If you do suffer a breach, and it needs to be reported in the UK to the ICO, they will look at what evidence you've taken around training in order to train your staff within the first 30 days if people are handling sensitive private data and information, and Kim will come onto that shortly, no doubt. The evidence that you've taken is really important to show who did what training, when they did it. If you use phishing simulations, a lot of training platforms provide that automatically. I'd recommend that the use of that too. Sorry, Francis.
No, please. You've now come up with loads of questions to mind. The thing we often get asked by our clients, it says, well, Francis, I did training in 2023. I said, what? Just the once? And when I do my talks, I always put a list up how often, like a multiple choice question, how often should a company engage in cyber awareness training? So what's your answer, Karen?
Yeah, so I think, it's as often as they can afford to do it or have time to do it. So, minimum annually, if not 6 monthly, if quarterly. if they could they should be reporting on cybersecurity every month. You know, I'm a chartered accountant, I have been for 28 years, and now running, you know, a cyber company. Very used to reporting at a management level, management accounts, how we're doing, how's the business performing, how's the security of our business, how many businesses actually have board reporting about cybersecurity. And if you don't understand the latest threats and the latest threat landscape, what you're doing about it, have a live improvement plan, where the vulnerabilities are in your business, you understand what those vulnerabilities are, you understand cyber terminology. If you don't have that knowledge and understanding and visibility on your business, you know, that needs to be trained over time. So it's how advanced the board and the audience are, I suppose, Francis, is the answer to that question.
And do you see the problem from the top down or the bottom up? You know, and we're going to talk a little later about culture, but you know, what is stopping people from engaging with a company like yours?
So I think it's, you know, what we're seeing is that with more and more regulations in different sectors, I think eventually cybersecurity awareness training will be mandated. In the insurance sector, we're seeing sometimes it's a prerequisite of getting cyber insurance in place to have security awareness training, because at the end of the day, most attacks happen as the result of humans doing something wrong or human error, right? People think cybersecurity is mainly a technology issue, where actually, you know, a lot of it is to do with people. And so if people are the weakest link, we all have a role to play from the bottom down to the top. It can be the C-suite, it can be from anyone that has access to an email address or connected into someone's IT infrastructure.
Yeah. Karen, thank you. I'll come back to you again in a second. But Ben, as Karen has just alluded me, she's given me a nice segue for you to talk about our favorite acronym, PICNIC. Tell us about the PICNIC problem, please.
Right. Well, I actually think you've come into this far too early in the chat, Francis. So it's not really followed the flow we were talking about earlier. But hey, better than
you know,
at some point than ever.
Mix things up.
Because the problem that we have is that you can provide somebody with as much training as you like, but if that person's possibly not so technical, or just from the challenges and the pressures of the day, you know, they've got a load of deadlines to meet. They're particularly from an accounts point of view, they're trying to make deadlines for payments, and the sophistication now, and the reason this was supposed to come on a bit later on was because it was going to lead into the ChatGPT thing, is the sophistication of the emails that are actually being delivered for the social engineering is just massively increasing, and it's harder and harder to spot. So that's why we've always had the emphasis on actually stopping the emails getting to the user. So you'll always got the challenge that while there should be some training in being able to provide the resources for the staff to be able to do their job properly, you are always battling against the human problem, where, you know, the social engineering is designed to trigger an emotional response and an irrational response. So when they see an email from the MD saying you must get this done by then, because otherwise we're going to lose this deal, we're going to lose this project, you know, it's very easy to gloss over the fact that the email didn't come from the MD. It was a spoof and an impersonation, and then they go and they commit to the payment without you know, and obviously make a fraudulent payment, and all the training in the world can't prevent that. So maybe the other aspect is then how to focus the training, and that different departments and different people within the organization need different types of training. So maybe the training for Steve and accounts isn't, this is how you spot a phishing email. The training should be, if you get asked to change your bank details, please ring the company and make sure and actually speak to a human rather than just go via an email. So it's not just the actual training itself, providing the training, it's how that training is provided and the content of that training. It doesn't have to be the technicalities of these are the phishing lures, this is an impersonation, this is social engineering. It's actually, these are actually the better processes to put in place, and you're trained on the procedures to make sure that the business stays safe and then you're looking at it from a slightly different angle as well.
Yeah, valid points, Ben. Thank you. I'll come back to you in a second about the same thing that we spoke about earlier. Simon, please introduce yourself. You eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff, and that's why I love working with the London Cyber Resilience Centre, because the amount of effort that these people, him and his team, puts in, including also Alexandra, you'll hear from later, is phenomenal. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Francis. Hello, everyone. Yeah, no, thank you. And this is something I'm really passionate about. In terms of the awareness training. So I'm Simon Newman. I run the Cyber Resilience Centre for London. They're actually, CRC for London is one of a network of 9 centres across England and Wales. So we're partly funded by government and are there to support small and medium-sized businesses and charities reduce their vulnerability to common cyber threats. I'm also a co-founder of one of the government's cyber clusters, Cyber London, which launched back in February. So cyber is kind of something that I live and breathe. A couple of things I just wanted to start with, Francis, talking about security awareness training. The first thing is talking about the latest government report in the UK from the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, which produces each year a report called the Cybersecurity Breaches Survey. So it was published just 2 weeks ago, very fresh. I've put a link hopefully into the chat, which Ben's going to work his magic and see if we can share that with everyone else. But it's a really interesting statistic in there that only 18% of the businesses that were surveyed did any form of security awareness training in the last 12 months. So that's 1 in 5 businesses, which I think is an astonishingly low level. It's one of the easiest and simplest things that we can do to keep people safe online. And as Karen was just saying there, the importance of doing it regularly, etc. But the fact that 4 out of 5 businesses don't do it, I think is a really, really worrying statistic. That said, I think it's really important that we get the training right. And the other thing I was going to mention here is that when we look at the UK, we've got 5.5 million SMEs. So that's organizations with fewer than 250 staff. About 78% of those in London are what we call sole traders, sole proprietorships, and around about 90% in London are micro businesses. So that means they've got fewer than 9 staff. So I think we also have to make sure that any security awareness training that we offer is tailored to the specific target audience. And a lot of businesses that are out there have very, very limited, if any, knowledge around cyber and the terminology that we use. And in fact, we often find a real resistance. Cyber attacks won't affect me. I don't have a digital footprint. So there's an element of trust and trying to build that relationship up first before we can actually start talking to these organizations about the really simple things that they can do to keep themselves safe online. And with that, and this is where I get kind of, I say a little controversial. If I see another image of a hacker in a hoodie, I will scream, because, let's try and move away from some of that technical stuff. This is about risk. Businesses understand risk. It's something they deal with every day. And so we really need to demystify the language and the terminology that we use in our security awareness training. And just finally, before sort of handing back, Francis, some of the things that the centres do. So we talk to business obviously regularly, face to face with police officers. We work very closely with the cyber protect officers around the country, providing education and awareness of cyber risk, sharing information and intelligence that we get from organisations such as Action Fraud about some of the threats that we're seeing. So that plays a really important part. Again, it's about building that trust and letting people know the simple things that they should be doing. Each of the centres as well also offers a scheme called Cyberpath. And Cyberpath is a fantastic initiative which effectively takes some really bright students from universities across England and Wales. We train them to deliver some very simple security services, of which security awareness training is one of those. So it gives them both some commercial experience, but it also means that those organizations at the receiving end can get training which otherwise would cost potentially quite a large sum of money at a very affordable level. And in London, actually, we pay for that, so it's free of charge at the point of delivery for those businesses. And that's a really important aspect that we deliver consistently across the country as well. So there's lots of stuff that's out there, but I think it's really important for me that we understand the needs of the business, we demystify it where we can, and we help business understand those really simple things. So building blocks, get it slowly right, and then gradually take them on that journey to become more cyber resilient.
So that's all good news. But first of all, we need to put the link on the chat for the London Cyber Resilience Centre that people can see. So what kind of resources can a small business, we know there's 1 million small businesses in London alone, Simon?
Absolutely.
What can they go find on the London Cyber Resilience website that will actually help them improve or at least de-risk them as a massive attack vector, from cyber attacks?
Sure. So the London CRC, and again, we'll put the link up there in a moment. So thank you for that, Ben. We work very closely with the National Cybersecurity Centre, and we signpost people to some fantastic guidance that's available for the NCSC. In fact, if you go onto the NCSC website, you can then have a look at all the various guides and support that's available for businesses and individuals. It's really well set out. It's updated regularly, and there are lots and lots of new things that are being brought out to help people understand more about cyber risk and what they do. So effectively, the job of the CRC for London is, I often call us the postman. We take the NCSC guidance the last mile, if you like, and one of the ways we do that is through our community outreach work, which is where we go and visit business owners face to face. So webinars are great, events are great, but often the people who attend those are people who already have an interest or awareness around cyber. We go and knock on people's doors in a very friendly way, of course, Francis, and talk to them about cyber risk, and just giving them information about what support and guidance is available out there for them to become more resilient.
So I know this is a little bit off topic, but I think what you just said about CyberPath is so important. So many young people and even parents that I know ask me, listen, how can my son or my daughter get involved in cyber? They've heard lots about it, at school. As a matter of fact, we've got somebody sitting here right now who's doing a week's work experience with us, and he loves everything to do with cyber. What's the process for a young person to get involved in the cyber path? And is it just in London, or can they go in Scotland? How does it work?
Yeah, so for CyberPath, it typically looks at undergraduate university students. So as long as you're at a university in England and Wales, then potentially you can become part of that program. If you go to the London Cyber Resilience Centre website, there's a bit about CyberPath there, and that will take you to the National Cyber Resilience Centre group, which then has more details on how you can apply and the windows that are there for taking the next cohort of students through the process. So that's one scheme that's there as well. What also, there's a few other things, and I think what's really good in the last couple of years I've noticed is that traditionally we've always looked at cybersecurity people coming in perhaps with very strong academic backgrounds, bachelor's degree or master's degrees in cybersecurity. I think now the cybersecurity industry is much better at looking at a much broader depth and a range of skills for people to work in the industry. And in fact, a lot of people who can work in awareness and education don't necessarily need to have master's degrees in computer science or related subjects. So there are a lot more opportunities now than there were perhaps a few years ago. A lot of that's been driven by the UK government. We've got the National Cybersecurity Council that's in place as well, which is looking at harmonising some of the qualifications and entry points into industry. So I think that there are a few things there, and perhaps we'll try and put some links up later on typical entry points. The other thing I would say as well, and I may be stealing Alex's thunder here, so I apologise if I do, but the police also have a really good scheme for cyber digital specials and volunteers, CDSV, and that's a great way, particularly for students who are actually able to do or young people who are able to do some very low level things and work with policing and law enforcement. And I'd strongly encourage you speaking to your local force to see if you can participate in that, because it's a fantastic way of getting some really good exposure and hopefully encouraging more people to join the industry, Francis.
Yes, I listen to your talks all the time. But the one last question, I know I can ask you loads here, but one other one I'm burning to know the answer to is, when you go to London with these policemen that walk around, what do they actually teach people? Do they knock on doors and try and speak to business owners? What do you do?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So we will often go and speak to business owners. Sometimes they'll know we're in the area, and we communicate more broadly, so they actually want to come and talk to us about cyber. But in most cases, they have a need, but they don't express that need in any way. So it is literally walking into a business and just asking to have a few words about cyber. And what we're finding, and I think this is a common issue through cyber, is that cyber is not often the first thing that people want to talk about. They might want to talk about fraud or other types of business crime. And that's the great thing the officers are there to do, is to talk about the support that they can provide in crime prevention in general. And then we can start having more detailed conversations about cyber. Okay. So we go out with guidance that's produced by NCSC and also the Met Police, have a little bit of book of cyber scams, which I think most police forces also have a version of as well. And we just talk about what support information is available. So it's really just about helping people understand they're not on their own. There's a load of really great free stuff that's out there, and also that they know where to turn to in the event that they need help. The key thing is about prevention. We want people to do those really simple things that reduces their vulnerability, as opposed to sadly falling victim to a cybercrime, which unfortunately now, again, going back to the Cybersecurity Breaches Survey, 50% of businesses suffered at least one cyber attack or a breach last year alone, which is an astonishing figure.
And what's that up from?
Well, it's difficult to compare. This year's report, they've made a little caveat saying that the way that they've changed their methodology slightly. So it's difficult to compare last year's figures to this year's figures. But if I am going to be, make a comparison, it was around about 37% last year, I think. So I would argue that it has gone up. But what we have seen, consistently is a general awareness or a general level of cyber hygiene has been falling gradually. So people are less able to spot that they've been a victim of a cybercrime. So again, really important that we get those basic things right.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Thank you, Simon. I think the next question is a big one, but I want to pose this to Kim and to Karen together, and it's all about your view on the culture of cyber awareness training within businesses, because I think, there's a lovely saying about culture. What eats something for breakfast? What is it? I've forgotten the saying now. But
yeah, it's culture eats strategy for breakfast.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah,
Peter
Drucker, I think. Yeah, famous management accountant.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So, and sorry, before you start, and when you're done, we've got our magic Martin today again that's going to do an unbelievable trick which we showed us earlier, but our five or six times, I've forgotten now, Martin, World Guinness six
working on the seventh.
Unbelievable. So we're looking forward to that. But Karen, sorry to interrupt, back to you, Karen.
No worries. Kim, do you want to go first? Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, happy to. I think culture is something I mentioned to the panel just before we started today, that I'm also a tutor for CIPD level 3 and level 5 students. And culture is a really, really big part of today's training for anyone who wants to work in the people profession. But culture wasn't in my training when I did my sort of CIPD learning years ago. And it's interesting to sort of see the parallels. You're absolutely right, Karen. Culture will eat strategy for breakfast any day of the week. But so many people struggle to understand what culture is, the impact it has, the influence it has, how it changes depending on what kind of industry you work in. And I think it's really important that the culture of leadership be a focus for us all here, because I think, Simon's point about the sort of lowering standards or resilience from a cyber perspective has a lot to do with the cultures that we see within businesses today. And most businesses within the UK are going to be small or micro or medium sized. And we can see that the socioeconomic factors there are really affecting the culture and the leadership focuses on the issues of the now. And for some reason, they don't see cybersecurity and cyber awareness and developing a cyber aware workforce as being key to the business at the moment. And I think that's an issue, because somewhere along the line, organizations and organizational leaders, be they sole traders or limited company owners or boards and chairmen and non-executive directors, all seem to have forgotten the fact that, as you rightly point out, people are the weakest link. Okay, and therefore we need to have a culture of awareness and concern for these sorts of things driven from the top. And most culture has been described as a group of people, how they think and how they behave, basically. And most of us would agree that that kind of influence needs to come from the top within an organization. So there's some concerning statistics that really do show that leadership within businesses at the moment don't see this as important. And I struggle to understand that. I'm sure we all do. This is your crown jewels. If data is the new gold, then why are we not treating it like gold? Why are we not taking all due care and attention over, making sure we lock it up, making sure that people can't steal it, making sure that we haven't got it out on display where it shouldn't be, and it just feels like a real issue with sort of awareness at the top at the moment. Do you agree, Karen?
Absolutely. I completely align to what you've just said, Kim, and I was smiling through it because some of it is what I would say. So I think there's a few things with that for sure. Around in this world, we're expected to do things faster, quicker, more efficient, more effective, and we digitally transform our businesses. We change them. We diversify, we speed things up. And with security, we need to slow things down. We need to allow staff to be more curious, to actually question things, to read things. Where's this email coming from? If from what Ben said, if you've used Francis's great company's services to filter through your emails so only a few get through, and those that do get through, you actually are guarded and look at the emails, you look at what's coming through. LinkedIn is one of the major areas that criminals are using at the moment in order to build relationships up with people to then try and do business email compromise, social engineering, phishing emails. These big platforms, what we put out in the world, what we tell the world about what we're doing, people can use and criminals can use. So educating staff that the blend between what we do in a home life and what we do in a workplace is sort of blended in these days, in that, especially in a post-pandemic world, within post-COVID, where a lot of people still work a lot of the time outside of their offices, the environment in which we work for, what we're connected to at home, how we work, that culture has moved off-premise to different places. And so the perimeter fence of our security has got wider. And so the safeguards need to be wider, and these criminals are becoming more and more and more sophisticated. What does a hacker look like? We mentioned about script kiddies. Yeah, there's still the vision of young people that are highly innovative, that want to just prove they can get in. They're mischievous, but there are a lot of malicious and a lot of monetized criminals that are out there that are highly sophisticated. The FBI recently launched, they named and shamed one of their criminals. And it was a doctor, it was a heart surgeon that was running a big criminal gang. These are people that could be saving our lives. They could be people that we're working with. Threats come from inside a business, not just outside a business. So
that's a really good point. Remember, the very first virus, the very first computer virus or worm, was a researcher into AIDS work, and he put it onto a floppy disk and he sent it out to other researchers who were his competitors in order to banjax their studies. So that was a AIDS researcher and a lecturer that did that, the very first computer virus.
Yeah, I think there's another one. Dr. Pop from, was it Harvard, created the first ransomware strain. So, these things have been there for years, but it's just the criminals are becoming sharper, more aware, they're more sophisticated, they do their due diligence. We're all aware of that film Ocean 11, probably with Brad Pitt and George Clooney, and it took them 10 months or months and months to develop what the attack was, and takes them 10 minutes in order to execute the attack. We see big retail chains like Fat Face and others where we can see scripts of how the criminals have interacted. They've done their due diligence. They've actually found results, statistics, financial information. They've calculated the ransom payments that they're after before they've approached the companies. They've found their insurance documents on their networks, and they're presenting them and saying, we'll only claim off you what the insurance levels are. So they're more sophisticated. Sorry for over speaking.
No,
I've been very passionate about this, as you can tell.
Aren't we all? That's why we're here, and I thank you for that. I think, Simon, did you want to just add something quickly there before we hand over to Martin?
Yeah, sorry. It wouldn't be a security everywhere webinar without me being controversial at least once. So I thought I'd get it out of the way now and get it over. But it was just picking on something that Kim and Karen were saying about culture. And I know this point about staff being the weakest link, you know, and the fact that, yes, there are technical controls, but they're never going to weed out everything. And often it's staff clicking on links, you know, without really doing their due diligence on where it comes from, etc. But I want to kind of stand up for staff in the sense that I think part of the importance of culture is about recognizing staff as the strongest link, and also building a culture in an organization which rewards staff for good behavior towards cybersecurity. That is so important, because if you have an organization where you are in fear of losing your job for accidentally clicking on a link, and let's face it, we've all done it. I've done it. Francis, I'm sure even you've done it from time to time, where we've been really convinced by a phishing email. The longer the gap between someone clicking on that link and telling someone what you've done creates a bigger risk for the organization. And actually what we should be doing is breeding that culture in an organization which encourages really good behavior. So the minute you click on something accidentally, you report it. You know, yes, there might need to be some training to ensure that you're familiar with why you've done it and avoid it happening again. And I accept for repeated offenders, that's a slightly different route to take. But I do think it's really important that we get the whole narrative around cyber to be much more positive. Move away from fear. Yeah. Cyber is here. We're in a digital world. We need to be much more proactive and positive towards embracing it, but doing it in a safe way. So culture is really important. That was the point I wanted to make, Francis.
Completely agree.
You say that, but this is thanks to Sheldon. We've got a new tagline: "Scaring is caring." So, anyway, moving on. Thank you for that, Simon. Okay, so now we have the 6 times Guinness record holder magician Martin. And just before you start, Martin, Martin does this, you know, to help us, which is great. Just to give him a little plug, this man is absolutely insanely good, and he goes all around the world to do events. So if you need to book him, just contact him directly, and he'll be delighted to. I'm sure he'll give you a very good price.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Francis, for that. And yes, indeed. So funnily enough, during the pandemic, I've been doing all my magic online, doing a virtual show called Secrets of Magic. And this is something that I do as part of Secrets of Magic, and also ties in quite nicely with all of the kind of cyber phishing and social engineering sides that you've been touching on during the chat. Now, Alex, now earlier on, I tried kicking this off, because usually when I do a bit of I'm going to do a bit of mind reading with Alex right now, and usually I spend a bit of time getting to know someone first, because then that way it makes it easier getting the read. Now earlier on, because we're kind of a bit quick going into it, I did try guessing a random word you're thinking of, but I got it completely wrong, didn't I, Alex? So I want you to go with something this time more personal to you, and I want you to think of your happy memory for me in your mind. So it could be you're on a beach somewhere, sunning yourself in an exotic location. It could be, like I said earlier, a music-related thing, or it could be like an animal you had as a pet when you were growing up. So bring it into your mind for me. Okay.
Can it be absolutely anything?
Just so the thing, so when I said to you earlier, I want you to think of just one of your happiest memories.
Okay, yeah.
So have you got this in mind? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, perfect. So I want you to put yourself into context for this. So if it is a place you're thinking of right now, I want you to imagine that if you are on the beach, you'd be on the beach. If it's an animal that you had as a pet when you were growing up that you're thinking of, then think of maybe the breed of the animal. Okay, so I'm going to say, I don't react to anything I say right now, Alex. I'm going to fish a little bit. This is interesting as well, because I'm doing it literally with the police officer that's on the call as well. So, and see if we get this. So, okay, so I'm going to say, I reckon this is probably, right, I think this maybe relates to a location, but I don't think it's a location you're thinking of. I don't think it's an animal-related thing. It might be a music or a sport-related thing, or something that's personal to you. So maybe something that's happened, like a particular moment that's happened in your life. So I'm going to say this is going to be, in fact, actually, I reckon we're probably going to be along the lines of, okay, I reckon it's going to be something. Okay, I'm committed on this. I'm going to turn the pad around halfway, Alex, so you know I can't write anything down after you said it. Now, can you tell us all, what is this happy memory that you're thinking of?
The one I'm thinking of is my honeymoon in Mexico.
Oh, okay. Is this what you were thinking of earlier as well?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Maybe okay, right. I'm not gonna lie. It's one of these things I get or I don't get. Like I said, I haven't actually kind of spent much time with you, Alex, on this, so I haven't quite got it. But also, did you think of anything else in addition to your honeymoon?
I did, but kind of changed my mind. Yeah,
You
it's the
changed
birth
your
of my
mind?
baby boy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go. It's the birth of your son. So there we go. Okay. Well, we didn't quite get the honeymoon, but we certainly got the birth of your son. So okay. Well, thank you very much. Like I said, it's one of these things I get or I don't get. But
I've got a
Alex,
hot.
yeah, so am I, Alex. So am I. Don't worry. This is one of my most stressful pieces of magic.
Yeah.
Well,
So there we go. Well, thank you very much, Alex, for your help with that one.
thank you so much, Martin. Thank you. So, William, let me bring it back down to real business again. Where do you think people should focus their training needs in the business? And also, I want you to answer it almost three ways. One for a small business, medium, large, because I know you guys deliver, different types of business to all. Sorry, training. So just trying to understand where should people focus on, and maybe in a small business, if they've got a limited budget, where should they start? And for larger companies that have got a lot of money, what should they do? Because you deliver these sessions all day long, so of all people, you know this answer best.
Thank you, Francis, and thank you for putting me on after a magician. So I've got the hardest job in the gig today, haven't I? Following that up with Martin, who nearly guessed it, and it was a real nice turn there with the baby boy. I enjoyed
Oh, thank you, William. Yeah, I'm not going. My heart is still pounding a little bit, Alex. So thank you for that. Definitely got the adrenaline pumping.
It was my holiday in Mexico. Baby boy, did you say? Going into this thing, I've been delivering training in person for over a decade in cybersecurity. So I've seen the evolution and the shift in how people deliver it, how the methodology is approached to it, and what they're trying to do. I think there's a distinction, right? And this is my, Simon, you're passionate with your soapbox moment, right? This is my one. And the thing that I absolutely hate, and in cyber, it's so actually damaging and counterproductive, is a tick box culture. And sometimes when you say, who should this be? Well, what companies do is they look at it and go, what do we have to do from a compliance perspective? And Karen touched on this earlier. The ICO and the accountability framework that says if you handle personal data, you have some obligation to take security training. And companies look at that and go, well, what can we do to satisfy that box? And it is completely the wrong way of doing it, because this is not the type of risk that is like a fire as a flood. It's possible, it could happen. It's a meteorite falling from the sky. But actually, on a day-to-day basis, it's not something which we really do think will impact us. And cyber incident is a lot more frequent, right? You look at the statistics. The statistics are always skewed. They're never particularly accurate. People don't want to report these things. But what they do show us is incrementally, year on year, there's more and more attacks. I think the other thing is that businesses are not static, right? And so we talk about culture, but we're not talking about, right, we've molded this out. This is what the business is. And now let's build the culture. The reality is that, technology is a Ferrari, right? It goes at speed and it changes and it shifts, and we adopt and we amend and we innovate all the time with different technologies. At the same time, staff are not, 30 years ago for my dad, you'd get a job and it would be your job for life and you'd stay with one company forever. And that was the thing, right? That's not today, is it? Culturally, we move around. We move across jobs. We change industry. We change the types of roles that we do. People don't stay in jobs for as long as they used to. So we're continually having to change and adapt how that cultural looks like, depending on the maturity of that organization and the approach towards it. So I think when you think about who does it affect and how do you measure that and how do you measure the effect of the culture? Well, it's nuanced, right? It's different for every organization, for every sector, for everything. But the short answer is everybody needs some level of training, because this is a growing risk and it's already a huge risk. And people recognize it's a huge risk. They just don't know where to start with it. So, if you were a really small business and it was very cost conscious, you were trying not to, there are great available resources out there that you can use, like the Cyber Resilience Center, like the NCSC, even Amazon have things. Now, I would always say you get what you pay for, right? And if you're paying for something, there's a level of expectation of what that does. And that is seen through things like the reporting functionality, which you use to demonstrate compliance with. So I think if you're very small, my advice would be, even though, you know, it would remove the business from us, is look, you can have resources. There's great resources out there on the internet. You can build the catalog, you can build a spreadsheet, you can log when people have looked at it. But the moment you start to climb up and you start to employ people in the organization, then you're only as strong as the weak link with that. So my advice then at that point would be to look at the training programs out there, which are inexpensive, to be honest with you. It's the cheapest thing that you can do in cybersecurity, is to buy an annual license of training that gives you a piece of content each month that reinforces the message, and a phishing simulation which is sent out, which tests what staff in real world type conditions. And then when you start to get into the larger tiers, you have to think actually that there's all different types of departments and different types of workers, and how do we change the messaging so it's relevant for their role and it takes that on. And that's when we start to go into the you know, slightly more enterprise grade security awareness solutions, but also being mindful that these organizations have IT teams in-house. They have cybersecurity professionals they work with. And this is not static. You have to continually learn. We learn every day. Francis, I know you learn every day. Everyone on this call is obsessed, unfortunately, with cybersecurity and data protection and compliance, and we're learning all the time. And it's important that professionals know that just because they've obtained a qualification, that isn't the end of the journey. It's just the continuation of it. And so how do we support those members of staff with upskilling them with that level of knowledge? And I think that's the mix of it. And I always think, do what's right for your culture, right? Your culture prefers to have people in front of them. Build in some of those sessions, but supplement it with something that you can use for reporting purposes. And you know, we're here to help, like all of your businesses are, to speak to people and understand the challenges they face, the cultural challenges, the industries that they work in, and mold a program to that business rather than just apply a one-size-fits-all tick box.
Very well explained. You said a decade. You look far too young, William. But putting that aside, you know, I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you this question anyway. And that's, tell me about the different types of systems or software solutions that you use to deliver the training.
Yeah, so most of these platforms are online based. Some organizations, depending on sector size, and obviously culture as well, will have something called a learning management system. A learning management system can house all of your training, not just your security awareness, but aspects like HR training, or it could be health and safety training, or it could be anything that's valid from that pool. Generally, what staff would do was they would have a monthly video, and the videos aren't just static videos, because part of the problem with having an online security awareness program is, well, you can have somebody that watches the video and the reporting shows that it was followed through, but how do you know they were engaged with that process? How do you know that their email didn't ping and they looked at what it was, or the football game yesterday finished and it was really exciting, so actually they're on BBC Sport on their mobile while they're playing the content? And so what these videos have recognized is, by building gamified type experiences where staff have to interact with it, where they have to click on things to make additional things happen and further it along, where they have to answer questions at the end. And I've seen a real rabbit in headlights look before, where people suddenly realize they're being asked something and they weren't prepared for that, and they then re-watch the content so they can properly take it in. So this is the methodology. It's trying to get people to interact, trying to get them to explore and really understand it on more than just a superficial level. And if you tie that together with simulations and simulated activities that reflect what they might see in the real world, and you know, like I think Simon said, you know, you can get caught out with phishing emails. I had one the other day. It said, "Will, I just wanted to make you aware, we've not spoken before, but I found this review of lockdown cybersecurity that was really negative. And I know this is probably completely fake, but I thought you should know." And even though I knew it was a scam, I was so tempted to click the link. Like, I was so tempted to see. It was such a pull for me. And,
Human.
yeah, obviously I didn't click the link, right?
Yeah,
but I could see, And so if we can test staff, right, if we can produce this, because we're on the front lines, we see this type of content all the time, right? And so when I see a really clever phishing email, I think, right, I'm going to make a simulated phishing attempt using that formula. And then we can start to gauge, you know, there's not just one type of phishing, there's a few. And so how you test staff in different scenarios is really important.
So what's the difference between phishing and vishing? Let's do some.
Yeah, there's loads. I mean, you've got phishing, which is obviously usually the format is on email. You've got vishing, which is voice phishing, which takes different forms, and that could be anything from somebody calling up pretending to be from your bank and your bank fraud team. Unfortunately, I heard somebody who suffered from this very recently from that type of scenario. SMS phishing could be a DPD text message that says your package is on its way. Click here to track your courier. On WhatsApp, there's a change of messaging. On Telegram and Discord, there is a change of messaging. So different platforms and different communication methods have a different type of approach. And so actually, if we can understand how that message differs between different platforms, we can really strengthen our response in being able to recognize and flag that.
Sorry, Francis, I was just going to chip in there, because that's a very important point, that we think about phishing and we think about emails. But of course, email is becoming a less popular method of phishing because the security is available now. Email security is much more, deployed more widely. The sophistication of the AI systems, next generation email security systems are really good because they do actually detect the context of the language, and so they can detect social engineering. It doesn't have to have a malicious attachment or a dodgy link, but it's the fact that they're actually coming in via LinkedIn. That's a key attack vector because they know they're getting business professionals, and it's not secured. There isn't that security system that's vetting the messages. But more than that, it's the fact that they're now using them all in tandem and in correlation with each other, so that actually you'll get the phishing email or you'll get a pop-up on your screen from a hacked website that says, "Oh, you've got a virus. You now ring this number," and you ring the number. And you get put through to a call center, and they answer very professionally, like they're Microsoft, and then they'll put you on hold, and you listen to some hold music for a few minutes, going Microsoft, the Windows 11 latest features, and it's all part of that coercion. It's all part of that trick to actually engage you into thinking you are speaking to actually the authentic Microsoft. And then the next thing you know, they've put you through. They've apologized for keeping you waiting. They've put you through now to an engineer. You're on hold again. And then you get to an engineer and you think, oh yeah, this must be a verified professional. And then they get access. You let them on your computer because that's the whole end game of the scam. And then they can get into your online banking and whip all your money because you've saved your passwords in your web browser. So it's just the way that they use actually all these different elements as part of a whole attack chain. And they're relying on you having your password saved. They're relying on you visiting that dodgy website that then gives you the pop-up, that then gives you the phone number that you then call, and it's a whole long sophisticated chain. But that's all part of the engaging experience that makes you more likely to fall for it. So it's really good that we've highlighted that the training doesn't need to be just around how to spot a spoof email. It needs to be on all the various different attack vectors that are available now, like WhatsApp and Telegram, as well as messaging and.
So Ben, I'm just thank you very much. I think I'm glad you brought that in now. We've got 11 minutes, and we can always carry on for 2-3 hours with these sessions. And I've still got some key questions to ask both Kim and also Alexandra. So Alexandra, have you recovered from that ordeal just now?
Just about, only just.
Yeah, I would love to. We spoke, and thank you for standing in today at short notice. But you guys at shall I call it the police force are doing some amazing stuff, and I know you've got limited resources. Tell me about especially the stuff that you do in Cyber Hub and what you do and your team to help people on this topic.
Absolutely, yes. So for Bedfordshire, there's 2 of us, myself and Very, that do protect and prevent. We, in a kind of nutshell, we do multiple inputs to small, medium businesses, charities, schools, all across our county. So included in those, we're covering stats of things that we've received, actual reported scams and fraud in Bedfordshire, latest threats, what's kind of up and coming, and mainly raising awareness. A massive thing that we love to do is our interactive workshops. So we have 2 at the moment. One is Decisions and Disruptions, which is a Lego game. You split off into groups and you're all given your own independent company. Year on year, you have to make decisions on how you're going to protect that business from cyber threats, cyber attacks, what could potentially happen. And at the end of each year, you get an outcome, whether it be positive or negative, through the choices that you've made. We find it goes down really, really well because it kind of opens people's eyes to what could happen depending on the choices that you make. And then secondary to that, we've got our cyber escape rooms. So the kind of general for that is you're a member of the Met Police. Your boss gets arrested and puts on social media that your case is being heard. You've got 30 minutes to prove that she was framed by a cyber criminal. So that's kind of a lot more of an online interactive thing. Again, you're working in groups to kind of figure out how these cyber criminals work, I suppose. But a lot of the protect elements that we do is raising awareness and spreading the messaging on how businesses can protect themselves from upcoming threats. Obviously, we work in partnership with the ECRC as well. And then the prevent element to our role is a lot working with younger people who are on the cusp of committing cybercrime. So we run a Cyber Choices program, which basically we work with these young people to keep them the right side of the law when it comes to their interest in cyber, their skills in cyber. We've had some success stories where those young people are now working in some big tech companies. So yeah, that in a nutshell, I'm a bit cautious of time, is kind of what we cover. But yeah, there's 2 of us for Bedfordshire, so always nice and busy.
So, Alex, this always gets to me. I mean, if you look at, you've got Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire, in total for those 3 counties, which are big counties, how many are there in total, people like you, to actually help people around?
So Herts have got 2 people as well, and I believe Cambridge has got 1, so 5 across those 3 counties.
That's shocking, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
I'm
I
like,
think
Simon might have maybe come into this because, I mean, if we, I don't know, I can't remember the latest stats, but most crime now are either cyber or fraud crime. And the least amount of effort or resources are put into this. And this is why we do our sessions, you know, just to help people be better educated. Sorry, you wanted to say something else, Alex?
No, I was just going to say that in terms of kind of the coverage, I think a lot of people spread the same messaging, but it's always from a different perspective. So the police kind of have one view on it, whereas a cyber company would have a different view. And it's surprising because I've been in the role 3 years now, and previous was Mike Williams, who I know, Francis, you've done some work with before. At one point we were working solo, so just kind of us for the county. And we've had to push for that second person, so that is good. We've got there.
Well, at least you've grown by 100%.
Yeah, there you go.
But so you know, you talk about Mike Williams. Yeah, they've placed, is it 2 or 3 people now, Ben, through the Cyber Choices, so young offenders, and they've spent the day with us here at the office, and hopefully they're one of those people that you mentioned that's gone back out and gone the right way instead of the wrong way, because you know it's so easily to go the wrong way. Kim, sorry for keeping you holding for such a long time. So Kim, as you might have picked up earlier, you know, she does a lot of work in HR and training, and as well as data protection. Both of us serve on the security panel for the WCIT. If people don't know what that stands for, it's the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists. Let me take a break. Anyway, but really what I wanted to ask you about, you know, what pitfalls do you typically find with cyber training?
Thanks, Francis. Yeah, it's been really interesting to hear everyone talking. I mean, I can't say anything different to what's been said already, but from an HR perspective, I find that, as well as from a data protection perspective, I find that most organizations tend to make the same mistakes with things like cyber awareness and data protection training as they do with any other kind of mandatory or legally driven training. And I know, William, you mentioned HR and you mentioned health and safety as well. There's also things like anti-bribery and corruption training as well. And I can remember working for a big bank and being given the exact same piece of training every 3 months to do, and you knew it off by heart after a little while. The training, I guess, the training is obviously needed in order to assure awareness of the law and of company policies, and to ensure that the right behaviours are there to ensure that your workforce is compliant. And when we're talking about compliance with policies and procedures and legislation, what we're essentially looking at is behaviours. And the only way to change people's behaviours is to ensure that they've got the right kind of understanding about what you're trying to get them to do or not do. There's usually 4 classic points of failure that I see. The first one is that organisations fail to carry out a meaningful training needs analysis. And, as William Edwards Deming used to say, what we can't manage, we can't measure. So a training needs analysis needs to look at everything that needs to be delivered. What areas of awareness or training do we need, and why do we need it? What problems are we trying to solve with this? Which kind of begs the question of who is responsible for doing that? Is it IT? Is it HR? Is it your DPO? And nobody seems willing or able to sort of grab onto that. The second point of failure is usually that, and I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, organizations will usually go and find either something that's free or the cheapest off-the-shelf training course available, and that is their tick box. They feel that that is going to give them, the liability coverage. The chances on that kind of option matching what they actually need are pretty slim. It's going to be a waste of everyone's time and effort. It'll be a waste of money. You lose the goodwill of your employees if you're going to do that. And also, it's far less likely to be accessible. You haven't got a blended approach. You're not taking the right consideration of people who maybe are working alone or working in different areas or working in different ways. So from a HR perspective, you are not meeting your diversity and accessibility requirements if you do that. The third point is that organizations make the mistake of delivering a one-size-fits-all. So then you end up with a training course that probably only has relevance to a very small portion of the workforce. And I think this has already been discussed earlier. I know that Karen and William and Simon, you all mentioned it as well. So again, you've lost the goodwill, you've lost that time, you've lost that engagement. No one likes boring, pointless training. Okay, nobody likes it. It's absolutely a waste of time. The fourth issue is that they only run the off-the-shelf or the free training once a year. And I completely agree with Karen and with William. It should be done on a regular basis, because you need people to absorb the messages that they need to. And if you only do it once a year and it's only going to hit a proportion of your workforce as far as meaningful training or meaningful messages go, then you literally haven't achieved what you were hoping to do. I think, having a workforce that is disengaged from the training that they need to do is a real issue, because when it's mostly meaningless to the data processing that they do or the systems that they use on a day-to-day basis, you're not going to be able to influence the workforce and the individual behaviours towards that compliance that you're trying to achieve. People don't get it. They don't understand what it means in the context of the job that they do, or the data they handle, or the systems that they use on a day-to-day basis. And if you haven't done that correct analysis, then you haven't got a hope in hell of delivering something that's going to back up your policies, it's going to back up your procedures. And I think Simon and Ben both made a mention of the fact that actually it's more than just the training course, having the policies and the procedures which you work into that whole message that you're trying to deliver really does help avert the worst cases, and it builds that open discovery awareness. The amount of organizations I deal with whose data breach detection and handling process is fraught with fear and blame, and the fact that you're going to get hauled up on a disciplinary is ridiculous. That's never going to work for a business if you can't approach it in the right spirit. And I think, without the right context, without the right engagement, without a bit of gamification, without a blended learning approach, there is always going to be a disconnect between the awareness that you're looking for, the behaviors that you're looking for, and the safety and security of the data you've got, and also of the workforce that you've got as well. There are plenty of case law that we can point to that shows that just having a policy or just having a once a year training course is not enough to provide that liability protection that an organization is looking for. And I think organizations really don't understand that the all reasonable steps, what they feel is reasonable is usually a far cry from what the regulators actually think is going to be reasonable. I can see a few nods there. So those are my thoughts.
One thing just to add, I know we'll run out of time with this, but this training's interesting, right? And there's this concept when you go in and you say cybersecurity and go, oh no, that's going to be boring. Where is that come from, right? Because at home we watch ITVX and we watch crime dramas, right? On Netflix it's all fraud dramas. On ITV, on Channel 4 it's fraud. Everybody wants to see this type of content. This is a really interesting themes, right, around criminology and how that's being applied. So actually spin that narrative, right? Challenge people in the organization. This is valuable, but it's also interesting.
Yeah, none of my training is ever boring.
Well, I think we should leave it there. Unless, Ben, did you want to, I know we've run out of 2 minutes over already. Did you want to have a quick 1 or 2 minutes about the impact of ChatGPT? And also, because that's what the whole session is going to be next month. Final word.
Certainly, Francis, and also if you can post the, I'll just put some links in the private chat because I'm having troubles posting to the public one. There's a free online phishing simulator from it's Jigsaw phishingquiz.withgoogle.com. It's the Jigsaw phishing quiz, and it's actually really good. But also to go to the Security Everywhere support webpage. Where you can sign up for our weekly cybersecurity tips, where you'll receive once a week a tip straight to your inbox, hopefully with humorous and in edge and in layman's terms, so that it's nice and engaged and it's not going to bog you down with technical detail. But again, it's just to actually increase that awareness. But also, it's just that constant little thing that you have, that little reminder, just to be conscious and just to keep it, in the forefront of your mind, that we need to be aware of these cyber threats, at all times. And the other thing that we talked about with the training, Francis, is as much as we can protect people's inboxes and we can stop 99.99% of phishing attacks, people have personal emails, and there's nothing to stop them getting a phishing link that takes them to a fake Microsoft web page, to their personal email, and then they put in their business email, Microsoft 365 username and password, and still get compromised. So as much as we can protect the work and the business email accounts, we can't protect the private ones in the same way, and that obviously gives an added value to the training, because you're not just helping protect the business, you're helping that person protect their lives and their well-being and their families, and then hopefully they will go and pass that information on to their children, their parents, their friends and their family, and we can help to to keep educating and keep everyone being protected. In terms of ChatGPT, it's just the added sophistication that it's adding to the content of phishing emails. So it used to be fairly easy to spot a phishing email because the language was poor, the grammar was poor, there'd be spelling mistakes, generally because it's come from somebody overseas, tends to be Eastern Europe or particularly Russia. Well, now, of course, they've got ChatGPT, or the hackers version, which is available on the darknet, called Worm GPT, and it will write the phishing content for the for the person. So therefore, now language isn't a barrier. It makes it even more convincing in terms of the social engineering techniques of creating that irrational sense of urgency and that emotional response, rather than thinking about it carefully and considerately. So yeah, that leads us on to the fact that our next session, which is as always on the first Thursday of the month at 12 p.m. BST, will be on AI and the benefits and of course the dangers that are associated with it. So Francis, thank you very much for getting this all organised, and for all our lovely panellists that have taken their time out their day to come and contribute. As always, the hour has flown by and we've run over time again, but the amount that we've covered and the different aspects of the topic that we've covered today has been brilliant, and it's really helped to highlight all the aspects of training, and not just the obvious end user training, but the whole culture and the whole, top down. It has to come from the top people in the organisation to actually breed that enthusiasm and that culture without the blame game. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. I look forward to seeing you on a panel again sometime soon.
Thank you very much, and remember to follow everybody on LinkedIn and to engage with the people that's part of the panel, because they deliver services that can and will save your businesses. And remember to book Martin, because I've seen him do this trick so many times. I'll tell you a quick story, because Ben and I were sitting in our second boardroom, the pub outside, and he went away to buy us a drink. And he literally got the 2 words of how many billion words there in encyclopedia he found was karting was one, and I can't remember the other one. And he guessed both words. And there were people sitting next to us watching this whole thing, and they just couldn't believe it. They were just like, how the hell? I still haven't figured it out. But anyway, so Martin, thank you so much. And on that note, I wish everybody a very safe rest of the day, and always stay very safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.